The night before my wedding, my fiancé's sister slipped me a letter that changed everything. I was in my hotel room, the air thick with the scent of lilies from my bouquet, my bridesmaids giggling over champagne in the suite next door. The rehearsal dinner had ended hours ago, and I was finally alone, trying to calm the butterflies in my stomach. Tomorrow, I'd walk down the aisle to marry Ethan, the man I'd loved for 3 years, a man who'd made me believe in forever. But when Claire, Ethan's older sister, knocked on my door, her face pale and her hands trembling, I knew something was wrong. "Read this," she whispered, pressing a folded piece of paper into my hand. Her eyes darted down the hallway, as if she were afraid someone might see her. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I couldn't let you walk into this blind." Before I could ask what she meant, she was gone, her footsteps echoing in the quiet corridor. I stood there, heart pounding, the letter burning in my hand. Part of me wanted to tear it up, to pretend Claire had never come. But curiosity, or maybe dread, won out. I unfolded the paper, my fingers shaking. The handwriting was Ethan's, unmistakable from the love notes he'd left on my fridge over the years. But this wasn't a love note. It was dated 6 months ago, addressed to someone named Lila. My stomach churned as I read the first line. "I can't stop thinking about you." The letter was short but devastating. Ethan wrote about meeting Lila in secret, about how she made him feel alive in ways he hadn't in years. He promised to end things with me after the wedding, to figure it out so they could be together. Each word was a knife, slicing through the future I'd imagined. I sank onto the bed, the paper crumpling in my fist. My mind raced. Lila? Who was she? How long had this been going on? And why had Claire given me this now, hours before I was supposed to say I do? I thought back to the past few months, searching for signs I'd missed. Ethan had been distant at times, but I'd chalked it up to wedding stress. He'd been working late, taking calls he wouldn't explain, but he always came home with that easy smile, kissing my forehead and promising everything was fine. Had it all been a lie? And Claire? Why hadn't she told me sooner? She'd always been kind but reserved, the type to watch from the sidelines. I'd assumed she was just shy, but now I wondered if she'd been hiding this secret all along. The clock on the nightstand read 11:47 p.m. In 12 hours, I was supposed to be standing at the altar, smiling at Ethan as our families looked on. My mom had cried at the rehearsal dinner, saying she'd never seen me so happy. My best friend, Jess, had spent months planning my bachelorette party, convinced Ethan was my soulmate. How could I face them tomorrow, knowing what I knew? How could I face him? I read the letter again, hoping I'd misunderstood, but the words were clear. Each one a betrayal. I wanted to storm into Ethan's room, to scream, to demand answers, but something held me back. Fear, maybe, or the sinking realization that confronting him might destroy everything. I thought about calling Jess, but I couldn't bear the pity in her voice. Instead, I sat there, alone, the letter in my lap, wondering who I was marrying and whether I could still go through with it. I barely slept that night, the letter folded under my pillow like a curse I couldn't shake. By 5 a.m., I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling of my hotel room, Ethan's words looping in my head. "I can't stop thinking about you, Lila." The anger that had simmered last night was now a roaring fire, but it was tangled with something else, desperation to understand. Who was Lila? How had she slipped into my life without me noticing? I couldn't just sit there, waiting for the wedding to crash down around me. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to get them by rereading that letter. I grabbed my phone and opened Ethan's social media, something I hadn't done in months. We were one of those couples who didn't obsess over each other's online lives. Trust, I thought, was our thing. Now, that felt like a cruel joke. His profiles were clean, just the usual posts about work, our engagement photos, and a few shots from his hiking trips. Nothing screamed Lila. But then I noticed his followers list. There she was, Lila Harper, a name I didn't recognize, with a profile picture of a woman with dark hair and a coy smile. My heart sank. She was real. I clicked through her posts, my hands shaking. Most were private, but the public ones showed her at art galleries, coffee shops, and a music festival Ethan had gone to last spring, one he'd said was a work thing. Had they been together then? I tried to cross-reference dates, but my mind was a fog. I needed more than scraps of social media. I needed to know how deep this went. Claire was my next move. She'd given me the letter, so she had to know something. I threw on a hoodie and slipped down the hall to her room. The hotel's still quiet except for the hum of early morning staff. When I knocked, she opened the door almost immediately, like she'd been expecting me. Her eyes were red, and she looked like she hadn't slept either. "Sarah," she said, her voice low, "you shouldn't be here." "Then why'd you give me the letter?" I snapped, louder than I meant to. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. "Who's Lila? How long have you known?" Claire sighed, sinking onto the edge of her bed. "I found it 2 weeks ago, in Ethan's study. I was looking for a pen, and it was just there, in a drawer. I didn't know what to do. He's my brother, but your family too. I couldn't let you marry him without knowing." 2 weeks? My voice cracked. "You waited until now?" "I thought he'd stop," she said, her eyes pleading. "I confronted him, Sarah. He swore it was over, that Lila was a mistake. But then I saw them together last week, at a cafe. He didn't know I was there. I realized he was lying, to both of us. I felt like I'd been punched. Where's the cafe? Who is she?" Claire hesitated, then grabbed her phone and showed me a blurry photo she'd taken. It was Ethan, laughing, his hand brushing Lila's across a table. The sight made my stomach turn. "It's near his office," Claire said. "Lila works at the same firm. She's a graphic designer. That's all I know." A graphic designer? At Ethan's architecture firm. It made sense now, the late nights, the client meetings. I wanted to scream, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was scared," Claire admitted. "I thought maybe you'd be okay with it, or you'd work it out. I didn't want to ruin everything." "Ruin everything?" I laughed bitterly. "Ethan did that, not you." She looked down, ashamed. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I said, and I meant it. Part of me wanted to call off the wedding, to walk away and never look back. But another part, the part that still loved Ethan, despite everything, wanted to hear his side. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he'd ended it, like Claire said he'd promised. But deep down, I knew better. I left Claire's room with more questions than answers. The photo of Ethan and Lila burned into my mind. The wedding was in 8 hours. I could confront Ethan now, risk a blowout before the ceremony. Or I could play along, smile through the day, and dig deeper later. Both options felt like betrayal. Of him, of myself. But sitting still wasn't an option. I headed back to my room, determined to find out who Lila Harper really was before I made my next move. Back in my hotel room, the walls felt like they were closing in. The wedding was 6 hours away, and the weight of Lila's existence was suffocating. I couldn't just wait, pretending everything was fine while Ethan's lies festered. I had to face him. No more digging through social media or secondhand stories from Claire. I needed the truth from his mouth, even if it broke me. I texted Ethan, "Meet me in the hotel garden, now." My hands shook as I hit send. Part of me hoped he'd ignore it, give me an excuse to delay this nightmare. But within minutes, he replied, "On my way." No questions, no hesitation. Did he know what was coming? The garden was tucked behind the hotel, a quiet spot with rose bushes and a small fountain. It was still early, the air cool and damp with morning dew. Ethan was already there when I arrived, leaning against a bench in his sweatshirt and jeans, his hair messy like he'd just rolled out of bed. He smiled when he saw me, that same warm smile I'd fallen for 3 years ago. For a second, I almost forgot why I was there, almost. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked, stepping toward me. "Nervous about today?" I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled the letter from my pocket and held it out, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Explain this." His face changed the moment he saw the paper, shock, then something darker, like panic. He took it, his eyes scanning the words, and I watched the color drain from his cheeks. "Sarah, where did you get this?" "Does it matter?" I snapped. "Who's Lila? Ethan, and don't lie to me." He opened his mouth, then closed it, like he was searching for a script that didn't exist. "It's not what you think," he finally said, his voice low. "Lila, she's just a coworker. This was a mistake, a stupid moment. It's over." "Over?" I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "You wrote this 6 months ago. You said you'd end things with me after the wedding. You were planning to leave me. Ethan, how is that a mistake? He flinched, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't mean it. I was confused. Okay? Lila and we got close, but it was nothing serious. I never planned to leave you. I love you, Sarah." "Then why didn't you tell me?" My voice broke, tears stinging my eyes. "Why did I have to find out from your sister, the night before our wedding?" "Claire," his jaw tightened. "She had no right." "She had every right," I shouted, some stepping closer. "She's the only one who cared enough to tell me the truth. You've been lying to my face for months. Ethan, meeting Lila in secret, writing her letters, acting like I'm some placeholder until you figure it out. Do you even love me, or am I just part of your plan?" He reached for me, but I pulled back. "Sarah, please," he said, his voice cracking. "I messed up. I know I did. But I ended it with Lila weeks ago. I chose you. I'm here, aren't I?" "Are you?" I asked, quieter now, the fight draining out of me. Because the man I thought I was marrying wouldn't do this. He wouldn't betray me, then stand here making excuses. Ethan looked down, his hands clenched at his sides. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The fountain bubbled behind us, a cruel contrast to the silence tearing us apart. Then he said, so softly I almost missed it, "Lila's pregnant." The words hit like a freight train. I stared at him, my mind blank, unable to process. "What?" "She told me last week," he said, still not meeting my eyes. "I didn't know how to tell you. I was going to, after the wedding, but—" "After the wedding?" I cut him off, my voice rising. "You were going to marry me. Let me think everything was perfect, and then tell me your mistress is pregnant? What kind of person does that?" "I didn't want to lose you," he shouted, finally looking at me. His eyes were desperate, pleading. "I love you, Sarah. I messed up, but I want to fix this. We can still make it work." I shook my head, stepping back, the letter crumpled in my fist. "There's no fixing this. Ethan, you broke us." I turned to walk away, my heart pounding, but his voice stopped me. "What about the wedding?" he called after me. "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because the truth was, I had no idea. I stumbled back to my room, Ethan's words echoing like a death knell. "Lila's pregnant." The letter was still clutched in my hand, now a wrinkled mess, but it felt heavier than ever. The wedding was in 4 hours. My dress hung in the closet, a shimmering white reminder of the life I'd planned, a life that now felt like a lie. I sank onto the bed, my chest tight, trying to piece together what came next. Did I walk down the aisle, pretending I didn't know? Did I call it off and face the fallout? Or was there some middle ground I couldn't yet see? My phone buzzed. Jess, my maid of honor, texting about hair and makeup. You ready to be a bride?" The enthusiasm stung. I couldn't tell her, not yet. She'd spent months planning this day, believing in Ethan as much as I had. My mom, my dad, our friends, they were all downstairs, probably sipping coffee and laughing about toasts. The thought of facing them, of admitting the truth, made me want to disappear. But hiding wasn't an option. Time was running out. I thought about Ethan in the garden, his desperate plea to fix this. Part of me, the part that still remembered our late-night talks, our road trips, the way he'd held me when my dog died, wanted to believe he could change. But the other part, the one staring at the wreckage of his lies, knew better. Lila's pregnancy wasn't just a mistake. It was a future he'd already started building without me. I deserved more than being his fallback plan. I called Claire. She picked up on the first ring, her voice tense. "Sarah, are you okay?" "No," I said, my throat tight. I confronted him. He admitted it. Lila, the affair, and she's pregnant. Claire gasped, then went silent. "I didn't know," she finally said. "God, Sarah, I'm so sorry." "What do I do, Claire?" I asked, hating how small I sounded. "Everyone's waiting. The wedding's today." She hesitated, then said, "You don't owe anyone this wedding. Not Ethan, not your family, not even yourself. If you walk away, it's because you're choosing you. And if you stay, make sure it's for the right reasons." Her words hit hard. Choosing me. I hadn't done that in a long time, always bending to keep Ethan happy, to keep our life on track. Maybe it was time. I stood, pacing the room, my mind racing. Canceling the wedding would be chaos, guests, vendors, explanations. My parents would be heartbroken, Jess would be furious, and Ethan, I didn't know what he'd do, but going through with it, saying vows I no longer believed, felt like betraying myself worst of all. I pictured myself at the altar, smiling through tears. Knowing he'd been with her, I couldn't do it. I grabbed a pen and paper from the hotel desk and started writing, not to Ethan, but to everyone, my family, my friends, the guests waiting downstairs. It was short, raw, honest. "I'm so sorry, but I can't go through with the wedding. I've learned things about Ethan that break my trust, and I need to choose myself right now. Please understand. I love you all." I gave it to Jess, asking her to read it to the guests. Her eyes widened, but she nodded, hugging me tight. "I've got you," she whispered. I packed a small bag, left my dress behind, and walked out of the hotel. The air felt lighter, even if my heart didn't. I didn't know where I was going, maybe to my sister's place, maybe somewhere new, but for the first time in hours, I felt like I was moving forward, not running away. Thanks for reading my story. Everyone, it's been a wild ride to share, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment, give it a like, or share if it hit home. Means the world.